Good morning, my beautiful woman. Welcome to an episode of Vulcanability, Lingerie, and Lattes. I have such an interesting subject today that has really come up from my friend and I discussing things, and really this was her observation. She had, I think, pinned this directly, like the hit the nail on the head. So we know that women and men respond to situations differently, and we understand that there's a different response to conflict. I think I've done a lot, at least one or two videos directly related to how we can approach conflict from a male perspective and a female perspective. However, today I want to open up the subject of how we express our emotions, and usually dissatisfaction, upset, feeling upset at somebody, feeling regret and like you have held back, perhaps a boundary crossing. So before we get into all of that, I know at the beginning there was a little bit of tarot involvement, and I have our amazing Psyche deck. So I'm going to pull a card, see what the message is, and we can continue the discussion. If you don't know, there's one that just jumped out. If you don't know, there is a masterclass I shared in the Vulcanability Library called Dr. Money and the Reamer Brothers case study, which is all of how normalized the transgender movement has become in our society. And it really takes a look at the only scientific experiment that has ever been made to supposedly prove that transgenderism and sexual desire is only cultivated through the environment. So please check that out in my library, which you can find on my website, $25 a month. And there's juicy masterclasses like this every month. Amazing. This is our card for the day. There is this beautiful woman diving, and she's holding this almost like a shell, which has a little bit of like these feathers or some sort of like seaweed kind of um, external presence. And it says, taking the plunge. So let's see what that card has in store for us, and then we will continue our discussion. Taking the plunge, diving into emotion. So this is perfect because right now, as you might know, we are in Cancer season with the sun. Everything is about our intuition, about our motherly self, nurturing who we are. And most importantly, feelings are related to Cancer. Seeing love, he was tired of skimming the surface and engaging with life on a superficial level. He wanted more, so he dove into the deepest depths of his subconscious to explore the deepest parts of his heart. He found love on a new level. His love was deeper than he had ever consciously known. So we're going to leave that as it is. Wonderful. So let's get into this idea, and I'm going to share some context of how I even started talking about this subject. There was an observation within me and my own relationship that I tend to project my anger or frustrations onto my partner in my relationship, even if there is no existing problem. So let me expand on that and see if there's maybe another woman out there who has this similar experience. All right. So let's say there's something that is causing me dissatisfaction in my life. Perhaps, let's say somebody, I was driving on the highway and somebody cut me off, and that already put me into a bad mood. And then let's say this deal I was working on had, gone in a different direction, and I started to feel kind of the pressure of work. Even though this was specifically tied to work, I noticed myself projecting that angst onto my relationship and starting to nitpick things about my partner and almost create problems. So I would think about it. I'm like, you know what? I don't think you're doing this right. I think this could be better. And it was a projection, because if I had really self reflected in that moment, I would have been aware that this is solely related to work. And if I am in this state, one, I might want to preempt conversations in my relationship by just saying, I'm not feeling my best right now. Maybe my mood is going to be a little off because I am feeling pressure around this because this just happened at work. Relieving your emotions, and at least not even relieving, but and it's not necessarily explaining to your partner, but it's more so of explaining it to yourself, because this is what started the conversation. I asked my girlfriend if she started to notice that a lot of her emotions, when she started feeling dissatisfaction at work, upset with her family affairs, and all these things, would she turn her attention to those areas of her life, or if something external or something, plunging yourself into a creative project just to get your mind off of it? Or did you take all of those emotions and you didn't really know what to do with it, and you just kind of exploded all over your partner and your relationships? And for her, it was a similar experience of the latter. So this is starkly different than the way men interpret this. And again, this isn't every single person by themselves, but it is a natural inclination for a woman to start focusing on the home, the family, the relationship, the partner, and love, and the love interest itself. Like, we are hyper almost focused upon that area of our lives. So this is starkly different than men, because my partner would pretty much never bring any of his anger towards me, any of his frustrations around work or personal issues. He would not really project them onto me. He wouldn't pick fights with me. He wouldn't tell me, things that I should be doing better. But there was more of this kind of like a drawback, and not necessarily an isolation, but kind of a retreat. Like, I'm not feeling my best. I know this has nothing to do with you. So why don't I remove myself from the situation? And again, this was similar to my friend's experience as well with her husband. So we started to notice this pattern. And I've spoken to many women. I've known many men that have used their partners as scapegoats for all of their emotions. So again, we are talking about healthy, like healthy and also corrective relationships that have self-awareness and are taking the steps to grow, not just your individually, but as a partnership forward. So in those states, even when you are healthy and open and processing your emotions, there's a natural inclination for women to start nitpicking and focusing more on the relationship romance, whereas men would draw back from the relationship and romance because they are fully aware that they can immerse themselves into something more external, something like the mechanics of a car, or going out and taking time in nature just to be alone. Because again, men, if you are part of the vulcanability library, then you've already seen this video, have this nothing box. So when they exist in that nothing box, they're thrilled. The nothing box also exists with a caveat. Men are external beings. Everything that they do, even though it seems like they want to be alone and retreating, everything that they do is almost for another. It is in service to another person, because it is protection. It is everything on the external, the physical, the structure side of life. I bring up this subject because it's very important for us as women to take accountability when we project our emotions onto a relationship and we wrongfully attribute our emotions to some behavior that our partner has taken. When really the root of our unhappiness around our anger or whatever is really not tied to him or the relationship in any way. And again, men have a strength in this. They really are not necessarily bringing in the baggage from the outside struggles of life into their love life. For them, it's much easier to separate. They are looking forward to the separation. They can't wait to step away from what they just walked out of. And whereas women, again, we think differently. If you've watched that other video, the men versus women in the vulcanability library, we have everything interconnected. And so I'm going to close that up there. I hope this has been eye-opening and educational. And think this through the next time you're feeling anger, frustration, or you're even finding yourself attacking your partner, catch yourself and ask yourself, is this really related to the partnership? And even though those points might be valid, is this partnership, is this partner the cause of my initial reaction, of my irritation, of my response? And I would urge you to look deeper and notice that more often than not, we might like to pick fights and use our partners in the relationship because it's easier than actually facing the thing that's bothering us. And it's easier to avoid what's really happening and how to create a solution when we create new problems and kind of put the blame on another person. With that, I hope you all have an absolutely magical Friday. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll speak to you all next week. Please go check out the library.